moving upward to reach one of the comparison that
Thank you for presenting the paper within the time you have. You can go and sit down because we will still come. They are taking down the questions to be directed to you at the appropriate time. This paper falls within geospatial data management. If you have listened carefully, he told us the source of the data that was downloaded and analyzed, the digitalization of the maps and so on and so forth. And from there, they got some results, primarily that despite the insurgency in the area, that we still have the increase in development within the study area or study areas. The question is whether that should be expected. Personally, I feel that it should be expected. You know, when you displace people from their traditional homes where they are doing farming in remote places, where do you expect them to go to? They have to move to the towns to be protected. And when they get there, they have to put up some. So when we get results, the next thing is to interpret our results. If we are seeing a trend, we must give reason why we think it should be that. Because if at the back of our mind we think that because of insurgency that the development we see is no, it may not be that. That's why we must go further to find out those people that were displaced from their traditional homes and so where did they end up with? Some of them rush to the main town where they know that they will have police, you have securities to protect them. So thank you for that presentation. Make sure you are putting down your questions. I'm just seeing the paper just like you on the screen. I don't have the full paper with me. So we are going to take the next paper, Comparative Study of Reduced Autometric Highs from EGM 2008 and EGM 1996. For the interest of those who don't know what EGM means Earth Gravity Model or Earth joint model. Earth joint model. So when we listen to the presenter, we will try to see what he's trying to bring out from this study. So I'll call on, is it Ishola? Eh? Okay. Oyekolade, SP. Please tell the person projecting this, we want to see the paper, not the... Let's see the paper. Continue.
Actual online period, that period, data online, data that ego, the other high, so high, so that the other high, ego. That I was student hopefully engineering very high up academic is them. Support instrument are used the height session in Genesis. We can obtain I with Genesis, which could appear 84. And of course, the reduced automatic height has to be referenced to the geode level, misty level. So in order to relate these three services together, to give us the actual height that we actually need, that is actually the essence of the paper. Okay. Of course, just go to the next line. Okay, that is the study area. Next line. Okay, that's methodology. Okay, these are document use. Of course, we make it up. Actually, explain that you have frequency generated. Then other stuff we have outcomes. That is the online BGM calculator that actually get downloaded. Of course, at this point now, we have two types of data. We have primary data and secondary data. Of course, the one actually observed on the field with the I-target Genesis is the primary data, while the EGM 2008 and 1996 is actually the secondary data. Next level. Next. Okay, these are the results. Actually, when looking at the result, we have the result for the ellipsoidal height and also the EGM 2008. So we try to look at the difference between them. Then also with the same ellipsoidal height with EGM net 96, we look at the difference, we find the difference, then we find the root mean square error. and also the standard deviation. Of course, from the root square error, we see that the 2008 is actually more applicable to be used for the Jordan model of the study area. Because the essence of that is just for us, once we know the Jordan model of a particular area, then we can actually use that to determine the reduced level height of other places in relative to that Jordan model that we have actually get. The next level, so discussion of results. Of course, the result obtained from this study are the coordinates of every 25 stations selected control points. So determine using GNSS. Of course, the formula that I've actually stated there is H minus, it's got to H minus N, then the EGM 2008 and EGM net 96 were actually used. Then the result, actually because it's very tiny there, for the standard deviation for the 2008, we arrive at 2.76628, whereas in net 96 we arrive at 2.76638. Of course, you can see that the result is very similar. They're very close to each other, but nevertheless, one is more precise than the other, and that is 2008. Of course, the root mean square error that was actually used to calculate was actually the result was 0.42196. So the conclusion is that from this study, we concluded that for us to actually get the reduced level of another point, for us, it's better we make use of EGM 2008 model. Then recommendation. So because of the expensive of how to get the gravimeter and also the tedious of using spirit level to get the automatic height, so one can actually use online calculator to get the geoda height. Then from there, we can as well get our automatic height by deducting the geoda height from the ellipsoidal height. Thanks.
Thank you, Oyikolade, for that presentation of the outcome of your study. You are comparing the results from EGM 2008 and EGM 1996. If EGM 1996 was good enough, there wouldn't have been need for EGM 2008. I hope it's correct. Because if he had given us the results, nobody would be bothering about looking for another, a better one, which is EGM 2008. Even EGM 2008 is still not the best. You know, the result you get is dependent on the data available, the resolution of the data, and where the question will come. I know that the essence of using EGM presently is that it's now faster, less tedious to use GPS for high determination. Unlike previously when we resort to spirit leveling, we know that spirit leveling is very, very tedious. But then it's more accurate. For some application, you have to use spirit leveling. Depends on the application, but it's very tedious and costly. So with the development of GNSS, it's very fast, but it has its own setback, which is the Jordan height that you need to have to be able to get autometric heights or height related to the mean sea level from it, if we prefer to use that, because autometric height is more than just subtracting this from this. Autometric height is reckoned along the vertical. You know that. It's reckoned along the vertical, while geodetic height is reckoned along the normal. So they are not in the same direction. That's why you also have the deflection of the vertical. So questions will come for those who are familiar with the EGMs and getting photometric height from them. So thank you for that. Let's wait for the questions. They will come. Some of them will also come from me. Okay. So let's take the next paper. And that is coming from Akinwale. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, my chairman, the audience. My name is Akinwale Akinsola Solomon from Federal Polytechnic Bida, Niger State. I'm presenting, I'm co-authoring with Professor A.A. Musa.
Is it Ahmed?
No.
Another A?
Yola. Abubakar.
Musa,
okay. not Ahmed.
Okay.
I'm presenting on the topic temporal assessment of sediments accumulation in Shiroro Dam, Niger State. As we all are aware, the AFOC power has reigned onto us both domestic and industrial setting of Nigeria. My people said if somebody carry a load, is having a bad leg, but if you carry a load and you see the load bending, you will think it's the load that is bending, not that bending is from the leg. That is the issue of power in Nigeria. That is what actually prompted us to go to the foundation and begin to see the problem of power in Nigeria. And we go down to our dams, taking Shiroro Dam as an example. Next. About 35% of power that is being sent to the national grid is from hydropower generation, which is being powered by the water reserve in our dams. Next. The aim of the study is to assess sediment accumulation in Shiroro Dam, Niger State, Nigeria. Next. This is the study area. The pink is the Shiroro Reservoir in Nigeria and the network of the rivers that made up the reservoir. Next. The method, we try to use bathymetric data of the bathymetric survey that was carried out in 2011. We use Landsat 7 satellite imagery, Google Earth, software data, AutoCAD, and ArcGIS 10.3. Next. Yes, procedure. Before we can effectively get these data to be used together with bathymetric sounding of the dam, we have to process, because the satellite imageries are full of fear of incorrections, so we have to first of all correct satellite imageries to remove some of the errors that are there in order to give us what we want and to compare with the real life bathymetric sounding that was carried out. Next. These are the charts that was gotten from the data after processing, after analyzing. Then we try to chart out the shape and the configuration, the topo of the bed level, because that is our interest. The interest is to know if there is sediment that is taking place at the blood level. Now, having known that the beginning of Shiroro Reservoir, 6 billion of water is expected to power the turbines. 6 turbines are installed. Next. These are also part of the bell level. We started to make a comparison from for 1990, when the reservoir started, then take epochs of 10 years interval, 1990, 2001, and 2011, to see the progress, the effect of sediment at the bottom of the reservoir. These are the charts, and this is by the side is 2009, 1990, 2001, and 2011. There are slight variations which indicate sediment accumulation. Next. These are the results. The first result is 1990. We try to use the generated contour levels and generated contour values. There and then we begin to see the variations that occur. We come again with that slide. We computed the area, the next. We computed the areas, okay, next. We computed the area for the 3 epochs to see what happened next. These are the effects of sedimentation that occur, and the slight difference. Actually, what we use the satellite imagery for is to also, if we use bathymetric solvent to determine the depth, then we use the satellite imagery to coordinate the X and Y to see how it's being affected both laterally and vertically. Next. Yes, these are the results. These are the results of digitization. Next. These are the volume computed. We try to see that the water storage in the capacity was evaluated to verify the possible variation since 1990. The original reservoir water storage capacity was actually 6 billion. Next. Yes, we try to compute the area using just ordinary algorithm mathematics. Next. Yes, these are the results. 1990, we have 3.7 billions, which is far, almost halfway of what is expected. 2021, we have 2 billions plus. 2001, we have 2 billions, still lesser. Then the year 2010, the same thing. Then we try to also bring it to nearer to this period. That is 2020. We have 2 billion 600 and something, which is depreciation. The bottom is getting height on the after 10 years of interval. Next. Yes, the reservoir storage capacity deposition. The table below shows that the result of the reservoir water storage at end of each of the epochs, the sedimentation is being noticed, being deposited every time, and is increasing. Since the reduction in any of the reservoir water storage capacity. Next. Yes, these are further results that is showing depreciation of the size and the effect of the sediments. Next. Yes, conclusion. We could see how we bring out all the results. The beginning was in 1990, we have 3 billion instead of 6 billion of the waters are supposed to be there. In 2001, we have 2.8 billion. In 2010, we have 2.6 billion. In 2020, we have 2.6 billion. There is evidence, there is no doubt that there are evidence of sedimentation, and we try to quantify it. We have 9,113,000 tons of sediment that was already there. In year 2010, the sediment has grown up to 1 billion. I mean, the sediment quantity has grown up to 1 billion. So the effect of this is that it's reducing the amount of water to be accumulated in that reservoir. No wonder the turbines are feeling the impact of insufficient water. For now, for some times, years past now, we don't know when we enjoy full power in Nigeria. Recommendation. We dare try to recommend that this cannot be getting rid at once, but there should be religious management on this sedimentation to try to reduce the effect. And this can only be done if there is proper monitoring of the sediment. That is because you cannot stop in as much the water is still running and the rain is still coming annually. There are some years that we experience flood and erosion, which push the sediment into the reservoir. On this wise, you cannot totally get it, but you can reduce the sediment accumulation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Akinwale, for that presentation of the result of your study, assessment of sediments accumulation in Shiroro Hydropower Dam Reservoir in Niger State. We know that that dam serves two purposes. Apart from being used for power generation, the surrounding communities are also using it for irrigation purposes. Am I right? Very correct. So, I'm fishing. We have other activities going on there. I want to believe that your epoch, you use the same time of the year. You know, it varies. If you studied one in January and the other time in December, you won't get the similar. They will not be compared. You can't compare the two. So it has to be about the same period in the season, so that what you'll be getting will be correct. I believe others are thinking also about the questions. You are taking down your questions on that. But before we move to the next paper, please, I've been told that the breakfast is ready. For those of you who won't like to take your breakfast too late, you are free. You are free to. That's what I've been told. No, they have to determine which is more important to them. Stomach infrastructure or, you know, some people take drug in the morning. So they need to put something. If you have people like that, please, we are not keeping you back. If you need to put something in your stomach, maybe you take drugs, you can just quietly walk to that place. They are ready for you. They are ready for you. Also, we have the publication, NIS publication, Nigerian Journal of Surveying and Geomatics. The current, I think this should be the current edition. 2021 edition is available. If you go to, where is it? If you go to the Secretariat, you can get your own copy. We have a lot. So we want you to pick your own copy. Don't leave this conference without going home with a copy. Okay, the cost. Less than $5. $2,500. Use, what is the exchange rate now to divide it? That will tell you the cost, the correct cost. So thank you for that, we want to recognize the presidents for coming in at this point. So you are welcome. You're welcome. Okay, the Vice President National, okay. We are doing this on your authority. You are welcome, sir. Okay, sir. So please, like I said earlier, just take down your questions. We'll take them at the appropriate time. Let's go back. Let's go back. We have geospatial approach to hydrogeomorphological characterization of Ajokuta River Basin. I don't know who is taking it. We have Ahochogo, Ojinaka, and Chugwacha and Bewood. Who is? Why are you coming now? Okay, you are Ahochogo. 10 minutes.
Our topic says.
I hope we have okay.
Geospatial approach to hydrogeomorphological characterization of Ajokuta River Basin in Nigeria. Presented by I myself, Ojinaka OC, Chukwacha AC, and Bewood CN. Next slide. In contemporary times, there is the need to understand, there is increase the level of interest toward watershed management, and this calls for good understanding of the hydromorphological attributes of all the catchments within the country. Watershed management implies proper use of land and water resources of a watershed for optimum production with minimum hazard to the environment. Why hydrology deal with surface and ground surface flow? Geomorphology is the science of landforms. Despite that, Ajokuta River Basin is one of the most important river basins.
Remember, you have 10 minutes.
Of the lower Niger Basin.
Speak to your paper.
Its morphology are not well known. Next slide. The aim of this study is to understand the morphometric attributes of Ajokuta River Basin using geospatial approach. The objective is to investigate the topographic and hydrological characteristics of the river basin in order to understand the relationship between the landform pattern and the drainage pattern. Others include to determine the area morphometry and the linear morphometry of the river basin. Next slide. This is the study area. The study area occupies a landmass of 5395 square kilometers and geographically located between latitude 6 degrees 50 meter north and 7 degrees 30 meter north, and between longitude 6 degrees and 6 degrees 30 meter. The area enjoys a precipitation of average between 100 millimeter and 1000 millimeter and 1500 millimeter, with a relative humidity of about 70% annually. Next slide. This is the methodological flow chart. The data used include the catchment of a study area and SRTM of 1 arc second. Somewhere here and here involve coordinate harmonization. Somewhere here involves masking of the study area to the actual boundary limit. From the master data, surface analysis and the hardware analysis has been carried out. The hardware analysis involves these steps here that leads to stream definition. With this stream definition, GIS approach is used to carry out the morphometric analysis, which include linear and the area aspect. Next slide. Hello? This is a stack of the hydrotrend on the surface, on 3D surface. It shows that the study area are located within the elevation of 20 meter to 460 meters above mean sea level. Carry on. Next slide. In this aspect, we try to lower the drainages on the 3D surface. A look at it can show that all the drainage, all the danger, or all the flow routes are located in between or in the valleys. This shows that one of the forces that determine the landform of a particular area is the interaction between the flowing water and the geology, because flowing water tries to meander through the easily erodible route. Next slide. This we try to overlay the surface flow, surface vectors on the 3D. Looking at it, we think that they are moving haphazardly, but as the name suggests, they have destination. Let's look at the destinations. Next slide. Here, you see that the flow vectors, all the flow vectors are pointing towards the natural flow route. These natural flow routes are invaluable for drainage design of a particular area. For example, this figure here is a drainage design of a small subcatchment. A small subcatchment is a basic unit of a landscape, basic unit of a landscape in the analysis. Basically, we have 3 levels of drainage, constructed drainage. We have the tertiary, which is this one on purple. We have the red, which is the secondary. We have the blue, which is the primary flow route. Efficiency demands that the tertiary flow from individual blocks into the secondary constructed drainage route. The secondary drain the entire catchment into the natural flow route. And the function of the natural flow route is to drain flow out of the catchment. Failure to obey this principle might lead to some certain environmental hazard. For example, some of the hazards include, next slide, erosion and the flood. Most of the time, we can see that some causes of this erosion and the flood is inability to follow the design principle. This is not the problem of surveyors, but sometimes it's the problem on the part of decision makers to recognize surveyors and surveying as pioneers of land information and bedrock of any meaningful development. Let's go forward. Next slide. Okay, this is the song here is the drainage water map of the study area. Drainage water map tries to describe the drainages, categorize the drainages within a catchment. The first order, we have first order, second order, third order. First order drainage is a stream segment without a tributary. Here two first order meets, we have second order, so on. Next slide. This is 2 tables matched together, the upper table and the lower table. The upper table here we have circulatory ratio, we have elongation ratio, and so on. These parameters enable the hydroanalyst to understand the shape of the basin, and the shape of the basin is fundamental to the volume of flow that the drains has to carry, and they also invaluable for estimation of the geological condition of the catchment. We also have drainage density and the stream frequency. Those parameters also help to understand the geological condition of the basin, and it also help. They are fundamental factors to capture the underground water potential. Next slide. So,
Thank you. one. Okay. Thank you very much, Ahuchogu, for representing your. I believe you are all taking down your questions for the various presenters. We've listened carefully to the last presenter, majorly the geospatial approach means that you have other approaches. Once you say geospatial approach, it means that other approaches are available, but there must be a reason for their choosing to adopt this approach to characterize the Ajokuta River Basin in Nigeria. So make sure you have your questions. Maybe we'll take the one paper more, then we'll take our questions. And this one is Akinwale. You come up again to present evaluation of the effect of the vegetation and bare land cover on Shiroro Dam Reservoir water surface area.
This time, my last paper dwelt richly on the position or accumulation of sediment. This time around, I'm trying to evaluate the source, the reason for this sentiment. And I try to observe the environmental impact or effect of where the reservoir domicile using land cover, land calculation method. I use the satellite image after making the necessary corrections. I try to use ArcGIS and AutoCAD to process the analysis and the results. Now, what happened was that in an environment, we have the plants, the earth, the soil, and the water that cohabit together. But the source of sediment is actually responsible for the environmental issues. Now, the area where the boss soil takes eminence, definitely there is bound to be, during the erosion, push much sand into the reservoir. Now, what we try to, this is the study area, the same study area. Next, I've talked about methodology, talked about the data processing. This is the area that we use to try to examine the grass-occupied environment, the sand or what we call grass soil, and the body of water, which is the lake, the Shiroro nest. Yes, here we try to see take it from 1990, 2001 and 2021 and 2022 to see the effect of the interaction between the vegetation cover and the water and the sand. Next. Now, this is the outcome of the reservoir from 1999, 2001, 2011, and 2020. Now, we saw that there was a fluctuation on the movement of the surface water area from 1999. 3% of the total area of water body was reduced. The original water surface area, next slide. The original water surface area supposed to be 310 hectares of land. That is the area covered by the water. But out of that, when we take the measurement, that 2009, we realize that about 9, when we remove this 310.5 from 320, which is supposed to be original surface area, there was 3% drop. 2000, we have 21.6% drop. 2010, we have 21.8% drop. Then 2020, we have 40.5% drop in the surface area. We realize that there is fluctuation in the surface area due to influx of sediment that begin to give birth to more of a sandy environment and decreasing the level of vegetation cover around that area. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. We're going to talk on how we process the imagery that we use to remove correction. This is uncorrected imagery. This is corrected imagery. Next slide. Yes. Now, if practice this, we try to also predict ahead about 90 years ahead of the reservoir, what the surface area will be after 10 years of the epochs, and we project up to year 2100 if the reservoir will still survive. We have some figures after this, figure 5, which we will see now. The results, figure 5, next. Yes, these are the figures. The first set of 3 is year 2030, 2040, 2050. The next set is 2050, 2060, 2070, 2080. And the next also follow until year 2100. Next slide. Yes, these are the results. From the result, you can see the red line shows the differences. The first set shows the water data and the variations from 1990 to year 2100. The next towards it, in the middle, is the vegetation differences data from 1990 to 2100. The last is the bare soil. Next. Yes, this is the chart. I mean the bar chart that we produce. The green that shoot up is the increase in the bare soil around the vicinity, while the red is the vegetation that is reducing, and the water surface area is the pink as it goes towards vanishing to the year 2100. Now, the implication is that if there is rain and flood or excessive erosion, which is fronted by prolonged rainy season, the more exposed to the earth's surface without vegetation, the more prone erosion and flood is, and the more risk the reservoir is deriving. Next. Now, the conclusion is that we can see that the impact of vegetation is very, very important around the reservoir. Hence, if there is less vegetation, it will be prone to erosion, flood, which is not too healthy for the reservoir. In recommendation, we advise seriously that proactive should be taken not to allow the reservoir environment to go desertificate. That is, there should be afforestation time to time. Then there should be a resensitization for the villages or dwellers around the reservoir to stop misuse of the plantations or vegetations around the environment, not to cut down trees anyhow, burning the bushes so that the life of our reservoir can be prolonged. Thank you very much.
Thank you a second time for that presentation. Remember our theme for this conference: mapping policies, strategies, and spatial infrastructure development for sustainable e-governance in Nigeria. For those who were not present when we started, I drew our attention that the trend, the global trend, is now for e-governance. We know that everything is going digital, and the 2020, during the COVID period, we saw that it's possible for everybody to work from home. Everybody will work from home. What we never knew was possible became possible. So if that is the case, and we also recognize that every activity on earth is location-based. There is no activity that you carry out on earth that is not location-based. And if they are location-based, then it means that surveyors are in a better position to advise, to analyze, and to provide solutions to many problems that we are experiencing in our country and society today. So this conference offers us the opportunity to look at the necessary policies that need to be put in place, but policies are not sufficient until we have strategies of implementing those policies. Then if you have strategies and you don't have the infrastructure, there's nothing you can do. You can't do anything, you can't do much. So this conference is offering opportunity to look at those different areas in order to offer our services as needed in our country today. We have a number of questions that may have arisen from our listening to the presenter. Now is the time for us to ask those questions. The presenters are still seated. And observations, not just questions. If you have any observations you want to make concerning what we have addressed so far, you can do that. So, the floor is open. The floor is open. Just indicate by raising your hand. Okay, you want to? Okay, let's take from Professor Alim, so that you can be free to now direct other ones. Yes?
Yeah, the president, values in the house, and okay, I stand on the protocols already established. My first question goes to the first presenter, Bala et al. I want to believe that Gwaza is an internally displaced center. So, judging from that particular hint, I don't think, do you think it is good enough to actually look at developments in Gwaza during the insurgency to be something that needs to be reckoned about? Because that one is just temporary for that particular period. Surveyor Oyikolade and co. Like the chairman mentioned when you finished presentation, if not because of the inaccuracy of the 1996 geopotential model, there wouldn't have been any need for the 2008 EGM. To me, like he actually mentioned it also, he said those development actually comes as a result of the availability of data. Using the geopotential model, is height-based. You find out that the information you are getting at a particular location is generalized on the, in the entire world. Because of that generalization, if you actually want to use geopotential model, you need to actually test within area for a proper research, for proper accuracy. That is just one small observation I want you to take note of. To my brother there, Surveyor Akinwale, you are giving us figure. Will you look at those particular figures as being a little bit bogus? I want to believe that it will have been better those ones who are represented in percentages for us to have a better capture. Like if I say, oh, a copy of this journal is just about $5. You know, it will be looking somehow than when I say it's 2,500. You look at that figure as being too big. That's just the little one I want to do on your first paper. On the other one, the 2012 flooding cut across so many countries. And of course, in Nigeria, we are also equally affected. It is being tagged as killer flood, 2012. Then, in your results, I still find out that your results follow the same pattern. Don't you think that the effect of that global flooding of 2012 will have affected some of these things? Thank you very much.
I hope you are all taking down the questions. Before you address the questions, we want to take more questions. Somebody is raising his hand there. Dodo? It's all right.
Good morning. Permit me to stand on the established protocol. My name is Dr. Dodo. I have two observations, or will I say one is an observation, one is just a follow-up to what Professor Alim said in respect to the second presenter that did talk about autometric height. Mine is just to let him know that we have EGM 2020. And I was expecting that you are talking about reduced autometric height. From what I can coin, you are basically looking at a comparative analysis of the Earth gravity model 2008 and 1996. I was unable to look at I couldn't see the autometric height that you've been able to derive even from these models. But one thing you should also know that EGM 2008 and 1996, they are based on spherical harmonics, while 2020 is based on ellipsoidal harmonics. I think that would be a better way of you to do the comparison. 2020 is on ellipsoidal harmonics, and 2008 and 96, they are all based on spherical harmonics. So that would be the best bet for you to do the kind of comparison you are talking about. Now, the second thing I want to observe is that, I don't know, permit me and with due respect, that we were expecting, or I was going through the booklets given to us. I was trying to look at the abstract of these presentations, because the abstract gives you the heartbeats of the paper that somebody is presenting. All of us, we are seated here, we are blind. We don't have the abstract, we are only seeing topic. So from the abstract, we'll be able to deduce and know where is the heartbeat of this paper. So I want to request that if we can have the abstract, because there is no soft copy of abstract, there is no hard copy of abstract, there is no book of abstract. So it's giving us a serious problem. That is just my humble submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that observation. Let me start with the absence of abstracts from the booklets. I want to apologize on behalf of the technical committee that the abstracts are not here. That would have given us a proper, concise picture of what we are. We are not pushing it to the presenters, because it's not that they sent in the abstracts, sent in their full papers that we are reviewed, but unfortunately the abstracts were not included in the booklet we have before us. So it's a little difficult for people to make proper judgment on some of the papers. But all the same, we listened to the presenters. We are basing our question on what he studied, comparing the results from EGM 1996 and EGM 2008. Like I observed at the beginning, apart from the model you are using, the spherical harmonic function and the ellipsoidal harmonic, we also have the issue of data. Your results will be based on the data you have. You are using those models to analyze. We know that for EGM 2008, apart from terrestrial observation, gravity observation, we also have the satellite parts from Grace that improved the results. And more than that, we also have a number of data available now. So, Ishola, or rather, Onikolade, I believe you are listening so that you can push your study further than the extent that you have had it. So let's take from here. Okay, maybe do we give you numbers? Okay, number 1. Let me give my number 2. Who else? Where? Okay, number 3. Number 4. So, number 5. up there. Number 6. Number 7. When we get to number 10, maybe we stop. Number 8. Where's number 9? Number 9, up. The last person. No, we have taken enough. Okay, women. Number 10. Okay, let's stop for so far. We may extend it later. So let's take number 1. If we still have time, we can take more questions. Maybe by the time others ask their own, you discover that your own questions have been addressed. Number 1.
Okay, standing on the existing protocol, my name is Dr. Femi Olunlade, Fellow NIS. I have questions for all of them, but I'll be short. Yeah,
just be fast.
I'll be brief.
So that others can have their.
Because some of them are general questions. The general question for all of them is the relevance of their papers to e-governance in Nigeria. We want to know your paper, the relevance to our theme for this year. Now, to individual paper 223, I think that's the EGM Onyekolade paper. Thanks to Dr. Dodo that has given that information about the spherical harmonics and the 2020 EGM. But I still want to know, looking at your paper, did you find a mathematical model for you to be able to, that's for the study area? And if you did, I don't think you explained it. Maybe you can now give us that explanation. Then you used RMS for your statistical analysis. I believe that for a paper like that, you need more than RMS for your statistical analysis. But if you did, maybe if you did more than that, maybe you could have explained to us. There should be more statistical analysis of the data that you have worked with. Good enough, the chairman has pointed out some things to you. I hope you have noted. My question to 223A, I think that's Akinwale. Now, same thing about your paper. Your results, good enough, all your data is okay, but your results, in that paper 223A, I'm thinking that you have data. I can see that you have good data, but you could have built a mathematical model, right? To be able to predict. Though in your second paper you try to predict, And I want to ask, in that second paper, what did you use as a predictive measure? Is it mathematical? Is it... So you can explain that to us so that we know. And then, for all the other chaps, I'm sorry I didn't come in early. I met the first speaker. But I think what I met, I want to also ask him, not only him, maybe all of them, the decision makers, especially those of us who delivered paper in fact, all of us, what will be your suggestion to decision makers or recommendation? Yes, thank you. To decision makers on, like you work on Shiroro, what do you tell government, assuming you have access to number one citizen of Nigeria, about the solution to both siltation in Shiroro and the vegetation cover in Shiroro? Will you tell them this or that? Let us know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have asked how many questions? So from 10, we have extended it to number. Okay. Yes.
Thank you. I think for all presenters, the major thing that surveyors do is producing maps or plans. And when you produce maps or plans and they are not legible enough for we as surveyors to make any meaningful contribution or meaningful extraction from that map, I think the aim of the map production is defeated. It goes for all. And for the presenter, the second presenter, 223, I heard you so many times you use the word datas. Please, it's preferable you use data set. If you add the S, it's safer. So if we are streaming this, let's stream the correct thing. For the first presenter, the work of the IDP camps, I was expecting us to get that information of. I know we do so many works that we use satellite data sets, and I think our presentation, I think it goes to the other presenter that has two works, so I can save our time. Specify, do your declaration of your dates so that we know which date you are using. That declaration is very important. And as well, for the the third presenter that had two works, the two works looks correlated. It's as if what you have here, you just lifted it from this side and make up this second paper. I don't know, it's my opinion, but one thing I want to state clear here is that the maps, we had difficulty in looking at the maps. And the reason for satellite vendors to now, when they are doing their, image processing software vendors, to produce an image processing software to give you the combination of red, green, blue, it gives you that aid for visualization. When visualization of your map is less than 50%, you have not done justice as a surveyor. And lastly, for the other presenter, yes, for the presenter of the last paper and the third paper, I was expecting to see a step-by-step approach. At least that explanation, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, and this is the result you got. Surveyors, our job is survey. And our product, one very important thing, area. The area, the study area, I didn't know how much that area is. Please, if you can give us that information, we'll be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for your observations. Number three, Number 3, quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Winston Ayeni. I missed the first 2 papers. I came late. I apologize. I listened to Surveyor Akinwale's paper and the gentleman who talked about geomorphology. This is the institution of surveyors. They said we are about 2,900 that attended. Now, you've presented a paper as a scientist. It doesn't mean anything to Surveyor Rotimi here. Not one contribution to Surveyor Rotimi. If it is in Stockholm where we say contribution to knowledge, all of you will fail. But you are all fantastic scientists. We are managers of geospatial data. Not one recommendation has been made that will be useful to a Surveyor General of any state from all your presentations. But we know that there are over 300 dams in Nigeria, and these dams are sedimenting, which is what your research has proven. One would want to therefore suggest, not just to you gentlemen, but to the rapporteurs, please, that our communique should not just read your result, which is scientists, who doesn't mean anything to maybe my president, who doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay? But yesterday, a deputy governor told us he has only 5 surveyors employed. Now, if we have 200 dams and those dams are silting, then we need more than 5 surveyors. We need surveyors general to send directors to the agencies that control dams. We need from your paper an integration of environment and agri and natural resources and water resources. These are the type of recommendation that we want to hear to surveyors. If you were speaking to NESDIL, then you can begin to listen to Dr. Dodo, whether it is ellipsoidal model or whether it is spherical model. But this is not a NESDIL conference. You have to know your audience, all of you. And therefore, I speak to the rapporteurs also, who are all from academics. They communicate from these papers. You have to adjust it to make sure that the Office of the Surveyor General has institutional arrangement such that all their surveyors can begin to deliver information. You can imagine if there are 200 dams, sir, and we've proven that they are sedimenting. If they say the Office of Surveyor General should monitor these 200 dams. I know somebody who was in Ministry of Natural Resources and he never monitored one dam from the Office of Surveyor General. So if we have 200, over 200, we're lying. It means definitely if they give 200 surveyors one dam to measure, we are not enough for Ministry of Natural Resources and Water. We have not discussed finance, fiscal, cadastral. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not an academic conference. This is a conference of surveyors. I want to know where I will get a job.
Thank you. Thank you, Ayeni, for that incisive observations. You know, if the presenters have not achieved anything, one major thing they have achieved is the reaction we are getting now. So if you think they have not achieved, it's just scientific, no. The reaction we are getting now shows that they have done something. Yes. And it's this reaction that will form the basis of the communique. This is what is going to form the basis of the communique. So we are taking your observation. It's going to be reflected in what's going to be pushed to the public. Thank you. The next person.
Thank you. Standing on the existing protocol is Surveyor Hassan Samaila Ija from Niger State. Thank you, Mr. Surveyor Ayeni and the chairman. If you folks did not come here, we would not be talking now. We wouldn't have sat here by now. So you are welcome and thank you. But from the one I met, Akinwale, it's more an observation. You do have answers. You may, but I do not think it's necessary. Even when we come here and we say we are discussing mapping, mapping is essentially geography. And what Akinwale you showed us was geography. And one disappointment I had with you was when you were facing us, you spoke about your volumes as in hectares. When you turned to the board, to the projector, you saw square kilometers, you did not correct yourself. That was very unsurveyor. And we are here to promote surveying. I have seen a World Bank project where the design was made from geography, from satellite images. And I think probably this is what failed the River Niger dredging project. When you sit at Europe and you do geography from satellite images, and our geographers take it, and because some of our surveyors have become geographers, they sign it together without realizing they have given away survey, which is engineering. And then the engineers come to the ground, and the volumes they were paid for to evacuate is like a joke to the reality on ground. And this is why, as surveyors, we are too concerned about accuracy. We state it if we are accurate, if we state it if we are coerced, so that whoever picks it from there will know his responsibility. And a surveyor eventually will come into it. And this is why we're here. So, and I was wondering, if you spoke about volumes, you were doing sedimentation, you didn't even speak about measuring the soil material. How did your volumes become tons? Ton is mass. Be careful, and we all have to. Like he said, recommendations are very important. If you finish all your geography beautifully, and you now state the coarseness of your geography, and the recommendation that this should be surveyed on the ground to get accurate volumes and engineering capacity, that you would have done as a surveyor. And we all have to do this, always. Otherwise, geography, every time we'll be discussing, and nothing will change. Geography does not change the ground. It only studies the ground. It's science, like he said, beautiful science. But what changes the ground is surveying, because that is engineering. And so you pin it down to engineering. And this country needs engineering. And it cannot be done, like the deputy governor said. If it has not been surveyed, it cannot be planned. If it has not been planned, it cannot be engineered. God help us. Mapping. But each thing we talk about mapping, we should talk about it surveying. Thanks a lot, sir.
Please, without saying that people should not make their observation, let us not put the presenters in the witness box, so that next time they will be willing to come out again to people are not in the witness box. You have made your own studies. People are free to make their own observation, but don't have any feeling that you are in the witness. You are not defending your PhD or your MSc dissertation. You have only presented your results. So we make our observation and ask necessary questions. So the next person, please, just go straight to our question. If you have observation, just make it so that we can. The next, that should be the fifth. Number 5. Where is number 5? Please come in there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Number 6, we're getting ready.
I had 3 comments and just a question. Incidentally, 2 of the comments have been taken care of. That's e-governance, relevance. It was made more incisive by even with the mic. Yes, the relevance of all that we've been talking about to e-governance. And Surveyor Winston Ayeni had made it more insightful. I think that's enough for that, and I want to believe they will address that. Now, the other one is, I think we need to concentrate more and do more about how we communicate so that we won't have a problem with the laymen out there understanding what we are talking about, especially at AGMs like this. And I am sure that has been addressed too. The question I have is that the man on the Shiroro Dam and sedimentation and silt collection tried to talk about units, and that has been taken care of by Samara. But there's this other one. He used the word fluctuation. And fluctuation has a sign, God. I don't know if there was anything like fluctuation in the research he did. Maybe he will explain that to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for that. Number 6. Number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All protocol duly observed. My questions are and observations. First, the observations. Dams have period of filling up after initial construction. So for you to talk about sedimentation, you have to get the design parameters of that dam. Then you now give room for the period of the observation you are going to make to say whether there is sedimentation or no, and the rate of that sedimentation. Shiroro Dam came into being in 1990. What is the design parameters, and what are the changes that took place that can be attributed to sedimentation? That has to be clearly defined before you can get those pictures of what you are saying. Your research, my observation, was based on the changes of the surface area. Surface areas in dam environment depends on the inflow, which is for Shiroro Dam is only coming from the rain season. So rain variability trigger the inflow into that dam. So unless you are careful and being careful, you will get result that will not be useful for engineers. So you have to make sure that you base your observation of those things. Even the surveyors, like what others say, the dredging of Niger failed because of those misinterpretations. Satellite drive parameters has to be validated. And I have not seen where you have said you validated those satellite drive bathymetry. You are not there, they are not available, you cannot be there in 1990 to give result in 2002. So we expect that there should be an in situ measurement that will now make a comparative to those satellite drive parameters. So if you had an observation in 2000 and you carry physical measurement, you now compare with what you have done through satellite drive bathymetry. Now, for the second paper you presented on Shiroro Dam, it's essentially land cover changes. It has nothing to do with the effect on the dam itself. And those land cover changes, water surface area is one of the land cover changes. It's not independent. So even the title of that paper should not be strictly captured by the repertoires. Because you say reservoir water surface. No, that's not something like that. We have underground water, we have surface water, then we have rain water. So this and
you, Dr. Isa. You are speaking from experience of your PhD. If somebody is speaking from his experience, you disorganize upcoming ones. Thank you for that insight. It took you some years to study to that depth. Number 7. Number 7, that's the mic there.
Good morning, and thank you, my chairman. My name is Ihaminu Oile from Lagos. Mine is not a question proper. Yet, on the impact of the dams, not only civil dams, the year 2000, I had a project to Matata Dam. And they put in that the engineer that gave me the job got the job done, got money for the job, put it in the job, they presented the pre-information plan I gave to them, and the job was abandoned. My observation and suggestion that we have to know how to talk to the government to monitor whatever the project they carried out, they give it out to engineers or surveyors, so that they will get the job done than to just get the money and account. That's what my question.
Thank you for that from your experience. Get ultimately from what we are discussing, we are going to articulate what has to be pushed out for government. So number 8. Where is number 8?
Thank you, sir. Permit me to stand on the existing protocol, sir. Is more or less to the third presenter who spoke more on this sediment. I'm feeling like there should be more methods to get rid or to limit sedimentations, like the vegetative filter strip as a recommendation. Also, the constructions of stone bounds can also be a method to solving that problem. Besides this, we need to really look into evaluations of the percentage of effectiveness of each of these methods to what we want to solve. So I would like the researcher to look into these regards. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Surveyor Adebanjo Drojaye from River State. 2 of my questions have been taken care of, but I have a very small observation, now that I have the mic. The top speaker, that is paper 223A, we talk about temporal, which is time. When you want to do a study that involves time, the data you are using here, 1990, 2001, 2010, 2020, if you look at the time interval, they are not consistent. I'm talking about volume. Accumulation. So you have to be very careful when you are talking about a data or study that involves volume determination. The epoch must be the same. The season is very, very important. You can't carry out a study in dry season and compare the result with that carried out in the rainy season. You will not get the same result. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 10. And the final one, number 10. Okay, come down here.
It's here. Number 10 is here. Number 10 is here.
Where is number 10?
It's here.
There's a whiz. The whiz that we give. The last person we gave, number 10, is...
Maybe, is it number 9?
Number 10.
I'm number 10.
The last person we gave, the person we gave number 10 is whiz. Whiz. Okay, let's accommodate him. Okay, go ahead with your question.
Thank you, sir. My comments have been cleared from other members that made input. I'm sorry, Dr. Didigu from Enugu. I'm only confused, and once it's a question to Akiwali. the issue of projection, which he made from 1990 to 2100. I don't know. From now, 2021 to that time is 79 years. When we are making prediction, we'll be hoping to stay and see what is at present and what is at that point. You hope that we will be alive. How many of us here will stay for 79 years from 20? Eh? So when you are making a projection, you make it to have facts, not speculation. It's the speculation you made, and it's not proper in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. When we do numerical analysis, it's safer to do interpolation than extrapolation. Interpolation is more correct. Yes, you have data already, you can do it. But if you start extrapolating, anything can what? Anything can happen. When you go outside the area that you are now going into, an area that you cannot, you may not be able to predict. But all of them are prediction. Whether you are doing interpolation or extrapolation, a common name for them is prediction. Because you have not measured directly, but you are using data that you have measured to predict an unknown value, whether it's within or outside. But you don't need to go very far from the data you have. Let me give Professor Dowu. Okay, we are going to ask the last question. We are still going to take your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My two questions go to the man that work on EGM. Generally, all of them, they presented their papers, others have commented, but the one thing I've seen in their work is the link from their work to the e-government. Okay, maybe, I don't know that somebody has asked the question. Then the second one is about the EGM proper. He was talking about the earlier EGM and the later EGM, which the chairman even said jokingly that it is because the earlier one was not good enough. That was why the latest came. So how can you now compare? Then it means the earliest or the earlier can be referred to as an approximate value to the new one. So how can you now compare the approximate value to the corrected value? Just if I may borrow from the adjustment procedure, it's just you are carrying out a least square adjustment, and you are now comparing the adjusted value by least square with the Bodish method of adjustment. When the Bodish is even an approximate value you are going to use in the least square adjustment. So that's why I think they are not comparable. At the same time, Dr. Dodo mentioned something about one is based on spherical harmonies and the other one is based on ellipsoidal harmonies. If you can compare the two, I'm still saying that even those one cannot be comparable because the surfaces are different from each other. So if you are going to compare, you must have a reference surface, single reference surface. So what I would have loved them to do is to pick the EGM and then use another method. If they use another method, they can compare the two, then you'll be able to advise the government, Surveyor Generals, as our Oga here has just mentioned. You can now advise the Surveyor General that this is the EGM which I compare with this. This one is more accurate than this. So anytime you want to use this particular method. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, for that. Before I hand over this issue of relating what we are discussing to e-governance. Even though the speakers have not directly connected what they have studied to e-governance, but to some extent they are also connected. We are going to maybe see that shortly. Let's hear from the WIS
All protocols duly observed, sir. Mr. Chairman, I was privileged to be here from the beginning of the presentation, so I want to appreciate all the presenters today. Surveyor Kimbini Rebecca, Lagos State Branch. Okay, so my question is to the first presenter. In course of his presentation, he mentioned that he had to merge the digitized study area over the classification. So I was hoping to hear him talk about the criteria he put into consideration for the classification. That's one. Then secondly, I was privileged to work with a team in Lagos State that worked on studying the spread of coronavirus, and I was hoping to see like a graphical representation of his study, like maybe the year. He said the insurgency started about 2007. So I was hoping to see like 2007 up until probably now, as against maybe the severity of the insurgency, severity of the insurgency. And then thirdly, I didn't really pick much on your recommendation because the insurgency is still persistent. So I was hoping to hear a very effective recommendation from you, considering the fact that you're in that vicinity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for all of you that ask questions, that make observations. We're taking note of those observations. Like I said, a number of them will be reflected in the communique that will be issued out from this conference. But let's hear from the presenters. Some questions were directed to you. Okay, before we take we hear from the presenters.
Thank you, sir. I'm Surveyor Dr. M.O. Ibitoye. I just want to try to correct some impression raised by the second, no, not the last, but before the last one, where he's talking about prediction. That predict for about 79 years. There's nothing wrong in predicting for a long time. One, you don't predict because you want to live for the next 50 years. It's a scientific word. You predict and it's documented. And after this, people coming behind will lay hand on it. Today we are reading about history of NIS. They mentioned the Ajayis. They mentioned some names that we only had. But what they did also documented. So for such a person predicting for a long time is not a crime, but it is document that somebody coming tomorrow, find in our chef, said that, oh, this surveyor predicted this. Let me see whether his prediction about 79 years ago is still realistic today. And he can verify it. It's another source of research. Thank you.
Thank you. We can predict for even within a period that your data, information from your data have captured. Because you are using data that is available to predict. So if your data have not been able to capture some variables, spurious. That prediction, it becomes spurious. So let's hear from the presenters. Some of questions were directed to you, so just use 2 minutes to address that, if you can.
Sorry.
Just stand there. Okay. After speaking, you hand over to the next person.
Okay. Thank you for all the contributions. Where it is necessary to take note, I will take note. But just to do some small justice to what I can do, the e-governance, I think they have somebody has some of the recommendations that we give. I will also go into e-governance recommendation. Also, thank you for the projection issue, because the average lifespan of a reservoir last between 50 and 100 years. And we see find some human beings that live even beyond 100. True of us. So, so our prediction is just as they have said, is necessary. I use the dam parameters, the design parameter. That is why I said the expected water for that dam is about 6 billion cubic meter of water. And from the first research, the water there was not even up to that. It was not up to that. So, and representing in percentage, presently, I realize that the life of the dam is not actually in threatening because it is just about 28% that is sediment that is noticed there now. So that is that. The 2012 general flood, I started from 1990, 2001, 2011, and 2020. So because it was not yearly, it could not take care of the May 2012. It falls in between, and that is why the significance has to blend within that 10 years of range. Yes, as a policy maker, we've do this some recommendation. Yes, the paper, just as I've said, the what could have been in situ measurement was actually a live bathymetric sounding of that place in 2011. There was a sedimentation, there was a bathymetric survey of that reservoir 2011, which I collected the data from the dam site. And that is what I use as a reference to check before and projection. The unit of measurement, I will take note of that. And I think, just as I've said, other ones that look like advice, I will take note. Thank you very much.
In respect of my topic, all the observation noted, and of course, all the questions, we actually turn to another research work, either to make it possible to compare the spherical harmonic and the ellipsoidal harmonic. Thanks.
Thank you for the questions. I still remain at the Mobala. The question on the development to be reckoned about the paper or whether it is relevant comparing it to the insurgency. I believe one of the findings from the paper is the rural urban migration because of the insecurity. So in most cases from the paper, most of the changes occurred in Goza town and Pulka, which signifies migration from the rural areas because of the insurgency threats to most of the urban towns. And the relevance of the paper to the e-governance, of course, when there is rural-urban migration, we know that the urban areas become more congested and there may not be proper planning for the settlements and other things. So the relevant agencies for planning and other things need to be aware of this because of the migration so that they can have proper planning. for such things. Then the decisions for my suggestion for the decision makers, which I've just mentioned, especially for the planners, they should be aware because in most cases there are temporary settlements which may not be in line with the design for such areas. Then the question on we need to specify and declare the date of our satellite images. Well, this is just presentation but in the main paper, in most cases, the satellite images come with their metadata, signifying the date, the month, and other details, which I believe should be there. And in most cases, since the images are in epochs, sometimes we try as much as possible to pick the same months for all the images so that we'll try and avoid changes due to the seasonal variation, because the images for maybe September may not be the same thing with the January because of such differences. Then the criteria for classification. Well, in most cases we observe sometimes whether it's supervised or unsupervised classification may not give you what you exactly need because of the spectral signature mix-up in the classification. So that was why we tried to, for the settlements that we can see, we also digitize them, then we merge, and from there we calculate all the details we need. It's a long process, but available. We can discuss even after the presentation. Then why I use 2005 instead of 2007 when the insurgency starts. Sometimes you need to start from prior, then when it occurs, because like the 2009, it was the peak of it was more pronounced in 2009, then going to 2014, that was when it was peaked, and then 2021. But by and large, from the 2005 up to the 2021, there are still steady progress changes, positive changes in the settlements. I hope I'm able to respond to the questions, and I'm also ready for us to discuss and interact even after the presentation, because we are all here to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. My limitations have been noted. My research is on partial approach to hydromorphological characterization. There was no specific question directed to me, but there are some general questions that I think that are related to me. Therefore, I'll have them. One of the questions says, what are the relevance of my story to e-governance? And the other one says, in position to approach to the president or those in of office, what advice will I give them? Yes, my research caught some aspect of this question. Hello. I would like to handle the two questions together. Some aspect of my study says that one of the causes of the environmental hazards is failure of the decision makers to understand that surveyors and surveyors are pioneers of landed information and bedrock for any meaningful development. Then I will need to tell decision makers that some of this environmental hazard is their inability to understand that we are the pioneers and bedrock of any meaningful development, sustainable development. And I will be able to tell them that we have improved techniques that we can use to process hydrological information, get precise information in the fast and accurate way needed for the said e-governance. That is my submission. Thank you.
Thank you. We've heard from the presenters or the papers we've been able to take before I extend our appreciation to them. I just want to highlight a few points that will help us, not necessarily going back to what they have presented. The first thing that we need to note, remember we're talking about our place in e-governance as professionals. The first thing that we need to know is the availability of global data over time. If you listen to them, you'll be hearing about downloading data over a long period. These data are available. They are available for our use. A lot of information can be extracted from those archived data. And they have pointed out some of them to us. But this data need to be validated, like somebody pointed out. And to validate the data means more work. So it means going to the ground to take in-situ measurements to compare with the data we have downloaded, maybe made from satellite observations. So we have that capability to do that. The data, the global data are there. We have some local data that we can use to the global data. Then another thing that we need to note is that the necessary tools for acquisition of current data, analyzing the data, and management of the data, as Winston Ayeni said, are there. They are there, and the joy is that more and more of our colleagues are developing capability of using. It's very, very important that we are developing more and more people who can use these tools that are available. So the tools are available. The data, where we need more data, we can acquire more. Then it's left for us to let the government know that we have the expertise. If you say you can do something, somebody is there, went for projects, along the line they abandoned. I'm sure one of the reasons why they abandoned that project is they got but maybe lack of expertise. We are coming into a period we have called interdisciplinary studies. Doing a study on dam, for instance, you can't push aside maybe other professionals, but they too must recognize what we can do. They should recognize what we can do. Many of them come for us because they know that those areas we are in our country, which we must that we are experts in these areas, and you must recognize what we can do in those areas. Then another thing I want to draw our attention to, in line with our team, we have spatial infrastructure development. We'll be developing infrastructure if what we have presently is enough. It means that if we are talking about spatial infrastructure development, it means that we are not comfortable with what we have presently. For instance, they mentioned a joy. We know that with GPS, with GNS, we can pick, as a part, extract some kind information from the height that we measure with GNSS. But then we still have the constraints of having joidal information that is good enough. It's part of the infrastructure we are talking about. Apart from using EGM 1996, 2008, or 2020, they may still not be good enough for local application. They may still not be good enough for local application. So we need to think of how to develop a local joid, which is part of the infrastructure we need. Once we have a very good local joid, then getting our autometric height referred to the mean sea level will be much faster and save all of us a lot of headache. So we need to identify any deficits in this infrastructure. And when we identify them, then we'll be able to tell government, this is what we need. Government is there waiting for us to tell them what we need. That we can provide these services to help the government. We can do that. We have what it takes to do it. We have the tools, we have the expertise, and so on. We need this to help us to deliver. So I'm thinking that from what have been generated by the papers presented, we should be able to get information that we can include in our communique to be passed to the public and to the government. So on this note, I want to thank our colleagues for whatever you have come up with. Don't mind the bombshell you are receiving. It's part of it. It's part of the training. It's part of the training. So just absorb it. Absorb it and go back and continue with your studies. So I think we are going to draw the curtain. Thank the president. I think he has left. He's no longer here. The deputy is here. The fellows and others. So let me hand over to, I don't know.
Yeah, well, once again, I want to appreciate all the presenters. You have done a very good job. For the fact that people are able to ask questions and make comments means that we are interested in what you have done. Well done. Tomorrow, God's willing, we are starting by 9 o'clock. Some more papers are coming in, which I will apologize on behalf of the technical committees for some of these inadequacies. Most of them are not oversight, but as a result of pressures on not only the committee, but also on the people who are handling some of these affairs. So we are, please accept our apologies on that. Immediately we finish here, we will go for our lunch and break. Okay, well, whichever one, we are just going to eat. So I'm hoping that tomorrow we will all be here by 9 because we have more papers tomorrow. As I was receiving call and telephone calls and this, it's just because of a lot of papers. The chairman just talked about our journal. This one is small reaching, far reaching. Please make sure you don't go home without one. It's just a token fees of less than $5. You know, I don't like to call big figures. 2,500 naira each. So you just make sure you go home with a copy. So on that mood,
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Please, member of the Karishi Estate Land Committee. Members of the Committee of Karishi Estate Land will meet here by 12. Karishi Estate. I am here to also attend to whoever is interested in the journal. Very rich academic journal.
I'm angry with the hottest DJ. DJ T in the building. Your worst enemy, you go be your best friend. Every night and day we dey think a daily bread. You never can tell who go be your best friend. You never can tell when the world you go end. Say make we yarn about the 1 June 12. We be say